If you're sitting at home, you're listening in a car, you're just hanging out on the couch, and you wish you were in a magical, fantastical world, we've got good news for you. Today, we're going to do that together in the podcast known as This is
Fireball the Gazebo. Are you throwing to me? Is that what we do now?
Yeah, I think that's what we do now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it. That was the thing you didn't warn me about beforehand. Hello, everyone. I'm here. It's Vince. And we're doing Fireball the Gazebo, a podcast about RPGs and D&D and getting the most out of your role-playing games.
Yeah, I mean, that was smooth right there. I don't think they'll ever notice that wasn't smooth the whole way through.
Nailed it.
Yeah, nailed it. So that's Vince. I'm John. If you're new here, welcome. Stay a while. We're gonna hang out today. We got some fun things to talk about. Specifically, we're gonna dig into magic and why it's all better in our generation than it is today, right, Vince?
Effectively, we're going to talk about why a magic system needs to feel fantastical to actually be a good magic system, right? And we're going to talk about its sources in literature and stuff like that and what it's drawn from. But it'll be interesting and exciting. And I may pull a rabbit out of a hat later. You never know.
Quite literally. Quite literally, yes. But before we get into that, we've got a couple of other fun topics and things we want to just touch on briefly. First of all, Vince, is there any newsy news when it comes to tabletop RPGs? I'm sure no new books have come out in the last week, right?
Zero, yeah. No, actually, yes. I went around and looked at a bunch of news which we'll occasionally cover where there's interesting news items. And I actually found 3 things that I wanted to talk about with you today, John. Well, 4 technically. Let's be fair, 4.
Right.
So the first big piece of news is this exciting new book right here came out. What is this? Why, this is Rain and Iron, the newest game from myself and Uncle Adam, a miniatures war game, but it does have some very strong role-playing elements in it through its full campaign system. Demons versus robots, the battle for the control of Earth has begun as the demons escaped hell, looking for juicy human souls to eat, but found only artificial creations on Earth were left. And so a war has begun. Solo, co-op, skirmish play, 1 to 4 players. Everything you need can be found at rainironirongame.com. So Check it out, including a full battle report, turn explanations, you want mechanics, downloads. Everything's all there. It's only $11 for the PDF or $17 for the printed book plus the PDF. So absolute steal. Check it out.
Damn. Yeah, I like that when you guys come out with a new game that you also launch it with some videos that people can really get a feel for how does this game play, what are the cool aspects of it before they decide to dive in and think if something they want to play by themselves or with their play group. That's a really cool thing. I've always felt like I always had to pick. I had to pick a game where there's demons in it.
Right.
Or I got to pick a game where there's robots in it.
No,
and you're just saying no.
Both. Yeah,
wow.
We bring them all together.
It
Miniatures agnostic. Use whatever demons and robots you want. And John, I believe that anything can be a robot and demon if you try hard enough.
Right. Yeah. I got like a D battery sitting around here somewhere, an old one that's not even charged.
Put some googly eyes on it. Nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're there. Yeah. I mean, I always struggle with like finding cool robot miniatures out there, and I know they exist, but
it's interesting you say that, John. Do you know one of the downloads we have available on our website of rainironirongame.com? Why, what is it but a giant list of miniatures with links to websites of miniature producers who make robots you could use for our game if you wanted to, including 3D printed STL files.
Yeah, that sounds like something like that we had planned as part of this silly like an advertisement here that I had like keyed you up for that, but I had no idea that existed. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Look at you guys are just doing all sorts of nice free things for the community. What a nice
to take care of people.
Couple of old gentlemen you are. Okay.
You were going to say nice young men and then realized how inaccurate that statement would be.
Okay, what's our other news? Do we have other news, Vince?
Yeah, other news, we do. So one is very on topic. We're not going to always talk about, D&D related stuff, though I think that's our main point of reference, of course, and probably for a lot of the audience as well. Mm-hmm. But the first one is a D&D news item. So they released a new Unearthed Arcana. Are you familiar with Unearthed Arcana, John? Both the original book from 1983, I think, and 81? Shoot, I don't remember now. Anyways, the original book as well as how they use it now to release playtest material.
Yeah, yes, I am familiar with the kind of the history of it, and I think it is kind of a cool thing that still exists in Dungeons and Dragons, but they've certainly changed how what they put in there and why they put it in there. It kind of feels like Nowadays, it's more of an excuse to like just like make you buy another book, as opposed to like we messed with some more stuff and we think you might like it. I keep coughing. God damn it.
You're okay. It's fine. Yes. So there's a new Unearthed Arcana released, and John, do you know what it was? It was the Scion. Now we're gonna do a whole future episode on psionics. Okay, I promise you, this will happen. Okay,
Oof.
stay with me, audience. Vote down below. Do you want to see me talk to John about psionics for an hour? Okay.
I'm gonna be honest with you too, and I've been playing D&D for over 30 years.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever played a game where we've used psionics.
Amazing.
I know there's points. I know it's mind bullets. I know it's mind shields. That's what I know.
It's so funny, the history of psionics. It's this whole other discussion, but the Scion's back, and effectively now it's just it's a spellcaster with the serial number scratched off, right? It's just another like wizard or sorcerer. You're using the same spells. It's whatever. You got a few new things.
God,
so, but that's more or less what it is. It seems pretty powerful, but I thought it was interesting because we're talking about magic and like what it needs to feel magical, and the whole concept of psionics is just like magic, but like mind magic, right? Is this thing. And so I always find like, how do you make that feel like it's just another interesting thing? Because the challenge they're up against, by the way, is our main topic of discussion today. How do I make this feel magical, different, weird, otherworldly, fantastical, but also like still within the rules and different than the existing magic?
Yes.
Right? Because you got to feel like mind magic, which is different than, I guess, what normal spellcasters do, who I suppose just cast with like their small intestine or something. I don't know.
Yeah. It comes from your diaphragm, typically.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And so it's way
a gastrointestinal system. Yeah. I don't remember there was a fantasy series, by the way. I'm getting ahead of myself, but there was a fantasy series, John, where that was literally the thing. I read it when I was a teenager, so I do not remember it. But like wizards would eat a lot and they would get fat, and to use their magic, it literally would they sacrificed of their body. And so like they'd have to like be eating heavily like fatty foods all the time and get like corpulent so that when they wanted to go off and start casting big magic, it would make them skinny. Right. And you'd burn yourself out. So like you had to have big fat reserves to be able to cast. And I just thought that was like a very fun concept.
Coming in the next D&D book, it's the new prestige class for wizard is the Ozempic wizard. So you can, by the power of Ozempic, I will cast these spells and get skinny.
Effectively, yeah, that's what it was.
You need to give me a shot in the butt every morning. That's how I memorize my spells. Please help me.
Yep. So if somebody down in the comments can say what that fantasy series I read 35 years ago or whatever was, I would be grateful, but I do not remember it. So anyways, that's the first news item. I thought it was interesting. It's always fun to see how they take the Scion, because it is such like a weird, controversial thing. It was totally orthogonal originally, and then they kept trying to like integrate it differently. And in every edition of D&D, they have to completely reimagine how the stupid thing works because they just don't know what to do with it.
They've never gotten it right. Every single edition, it's either completely broken and just like it plays its own game, and therefore it like completely messes with everything, usually too powered.
Or like 4-dimensional chess, right? That all the time. Yeah,
exactly. It's like, I got a club. And you're like, yeah, I just make your brain explode by looking at you funny. And there's either that, or there is like what it sounds like this new Unearthed Arcana is, which is like, it's a new coat of paint and you're the sinus wizard now. It's like, whoa. I mean, you're still doing the same thing, casting the same spells, but it's like, we already did that with Warlock and Sorcerer. Like,
but now, John, there's like dice and other things, other resources you manage. How exciting. Doesn't that just make it... Doesn't that make it interesting to you?
No, I just like playing Tzeentch and Warhammer. It's like, no, you get free bonus dice. Jesus Christ. We're the dice wizards. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, if you want to be a gambler, I guess.
Sure. So that was the first news. A little quick other news item here. Are you familiar with the Old Gods of Appalachia game at all? You ever heard of this?
I'm familiar with the Old Gods of Appalachia, the podcast.
Yeah. So there's a game. Okay. Well. So it's from Monty Cook. And it's what you think it is. It's pretty cool. I like Monty Cook as a game designer. I think he's like a really, really inventive, creative game designer. He's one of my favorite game designers ever. And so anyways, he has an expansion coming out in August for the Old Gods of Appalachia called Dig Your Own Grave. And I'm like pretty interested in it. It looks really cool. Like I love the look of it. It's sort of more set in that world and kind of expands some playable options and stuff like that. So if you're into if you're into Monty's games at all, which is like he has quite a wide selection of really creative games now that he and his company have put out. That seems like a really cool expansion. So I just dug it. So thought maybe people would want to know.
So if people that don't know what Old Gods of Appalachia are, it's kind of at least the podcast where my list do. It's kind of storytelling in this kind of creepy aesthetic of the world that we live in, that there's some kind of connection to another plane or world or something that occasionally blurs over into our world. And that's sometimes is connected to things like cryptids, like the Chupacabra or the Sam Squanch and that kind of thing.
Mothman.
Yeah, Mothman. That's a big one. But all the times it's like, like dark magics, real magics, things like in the history of the world that we know of, that there's actual real rumors of, like the witches that were burned in the old timey times and in bog wenches in Louisiana and that kind of thing. It's like that in this world, there is truth to that. There is reality. And I'm not saying there isn't in our world. It'd be pretty sweet. Because if I met a bog witch and she was real, I would probably make some kind of a deal.
Make some kind of a shady deal. Make a mistake is what you're saying. Yeah,
I make a mistake. Make a mistake for the long term. But in the short term, I'd feel really proud of my decision making.
Nothing but winning. Yeah. So I thought that was a cool expansion. And then finally, another designer with a long history that I really like. I've been involved in a lot of good projects. A guy named Rodney Thompson. It's funny because in the role playing world, we have such a long pedigree of designers, right? Of people who've been involved in the game in various iterations of like D&D is often where they start and then they branch off on their own. It's much like in Warhammer, right? It's the same thing. Think of how many indie game companies or other game companies in wargaming are started by people who are ex-GW affiliates, right? Or associates, sorry. At any rate, Rodney Thompson, he has like sort of a universal mechanic engine that he uses for a lot of his games. He's got a couple different games out. But he's got a new game coming to the Kickstarter is actually running right now. And it's called Neon City Outlaws, which is like a cyberpunk game. I really love cyberpunk as a genre. Something I'm sure we'll have to talk about also in the future on the show. I just think cyberpunk is like a really fun genre, even if kind of silly now because like no one's going to get mohawks and stuff again. But the punk aesthetic goes on. That's just it. Like the punk aesthetic has never been more, in my opinion, like important than the world we live in right now. But it doesn't have to look like denim jacket with giant pins and a mohawk, right? Like punk doesn't, whatever. Anyways, the point is that it's a new cyberpunk game, and I'm always interested in those. So I look forward to this. Want to check it out. I'll probably. I don't generally back Kickstarters. I kind of just want to wait for the game to come out and purchase the game. I like just buying a product. I don't like pre-ordering a product through a Kickstarter as much. You don't
like that Christmas present for yourself that you forgot you ordered?
It is that. Yeah, that is true. But it looks really cool. Like I looked at the art, looks amazing. Which is what I like was poring over. I'll be honest. The art of a game is like often what draws me in first. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, because it feels like you've put in, some effort and you've really like thought through the aesthetic and the feel of the game and that you've committed to that. And if that art inspires you, it at least for me, like it makes me want to dig deeper and to see how much love did they pour into everything else if they did it to this and see the world. So I'm with you.
Yeah, and that cyberpunk aesthetic in general is something that like I'm a big fan of. I mean, I know it's just the guy who paints everything in like turquoise, teal, and magenta loves the cyberpunk aesthetic. I know this is like real revolutionary information being delivered. So, but anyways, there's our little bit of news.
Every one of your backgrounds, your models just has like weird laser lines that are cross-secting, coming from some neon signs off camera, right? They're there.
It's always off camera. It's always right there. Everybody's standing very close to neon at all points in time. Yes.
Yeah. It's always slightly rainy out, It's always nighttime too, but whatever. That's where all the cool stuff happens in the cyberpunk world.
I'm getting noodles from some kind of cart. It's great.
Yeah, noodles. And there's like somebody like perched over like a gargoyle over the edge of a building just above you. You don't really know a shadowy figure, but the little bit of neon's hitting them from below. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a world we live in Vince's ideal.
In my ideal world, yes. That is my ideal world. This is the world that Vince wants. Yes, correct.
Utopia was the word I was looking for. Couldn't quite grasp it in time. We got there. All right, we're gonna do a fun little topic here before we get into do too deep into stuff here, and this is what we're gonna tentatively call "Whose Line Is It Anyway?" D&D edition. And so what we're gonna do is one of us is gonna lay out a scene, a situation within a role playing game for the other, and the other will play the PC. In this situation, Vince is gonna play the PC, and I'm gonna play the NPC, and we're just gonna kind of just like have some fun interacting with the world, with the NPC, and see what happens. I have no idea where this is going to go. And so we're about to find out. So, Vince,
Okay.
here's a situation.
I'm ready.
All right. You are currently lost in the forest. All
Okay.
right. You need to get back to your village. You've found out this nasty, evil orc tribe is going to ambush, pillage, and destroy your village. But you're lost. You feel this sense of urgency. Now you stumble across a clearing in that forest, and there's a mushroom circle, and there's no other
Okay.
trees or shrubbery nearby. Seated in the center of that mushroom circle is a man. It's kind of dark through the canopy above you, so you can't see all of the details about him from this distance. But he sits cross-legged. His back is to you, and his eyes seem to be either closed or his head is just kind of nodded off.
Okay. Since you haven't actually set up who I am specifically,
No, I'll leave that to you.
that's fine. I am going to assume that I am basically the equivalent of Parn in the beginning of like episode 2 of Record of Lotus Wars, which is the one where you actually start the story because it does that weird like first episode happens midway through blah 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 thing. So that's when Parn is rushing back to the village to tell them that the goblins are going to attack. So I'm like a 16-year-old wannabe warrior kid, you know,
Full-
who dreams
full
of being
hero,
an adventurer.
right?
Yes, whose parents are dead.
Yeah.
And I feel a lot of pressure on myself, you know, to live up. But I've generally been raised by like people in the village,
Right.
so I feel like I owe a large like debt to all of them since they raised me since my father died in battle. Okay, I'm ready. I've got my character. I know who I am.
Okay. You step into the clearing of this otherwise incredibly dense forest that you've lost your way in somehow, even though
Okay.
you seem to have known it all your life growing up near
course.
here.
Oh, good. Thank God. Thank the gods. Someone's here. Okay. Excuse me. I need to find my way back to the village. I don't know who you are. I'm sorry. Do you live here? Is this your woods? I'm sorry if I wandered into it. I didn't mean to, but there's somebody that's going to attack the village. I need to get back and warn them like really quickly. Do you know the way out of here?
His head tilts up and slightly towards you. His back is still to you. He still sits cross-legged, and he gives you a quizzical look and says, "Huh? Are you talking to me?"
Yes. Sorry. My name's Narap, and I'm from the village nearby. Do you know the village nearby? Are you a traveler too? Do you know your way out of here? There's orcs. Do you know what an orc is? They're going to attack. There's a lot of them. I need to warn everyone, or people are going to die.
Oh, I'm settled down, young man. I'm sure that everything is just fine. And he stands up and he then faces you, and you can see he's wearing weird garb, unlike you've ever seen before. It's a series of straps of a variety of colors that go from ankle all the way up to neck. He doesn't appear to be armed in any way. He's got pointy ears, and you've seen elves before, and maybe he's an elf, and he's got long blonde hair. He says, "Orcs, you say?"
Yeah,
I've-
like a lot of them. Like a lot of them. Trust me. There's and they're very angry, and it's not a good situation. Look, I went into their cave. I thought that I was going to be able to like just scare a couple of them off, but I accidentally killed one of them, and then they all got very angry, like really angry, and now they are coming for the village, and I need to go warn everybody, or I'm going to accidentally get everybody in the village killed, and I don't want to get everybody killed. So please, you got to help me.
So, village. I mean, young man, you must be lost. There's no village anywhere near here for miles and miles. Far to the north, there is a small village outside the realm of this forest, but you found your way here. Interesting. And he
No,
walks.
it's I'm from Riverwalk Village. Remember, it's well, I mean, like I couldn't have got that far. I'm just walking around on foot. Riverwalk. It's not far. Well, I think it's not far from here. I mean, I'm lost, but when I look, it's about I don't know. Crow flies probably I don't know, like 2 miles from the cave I was in. I can't be that far away.
Oh, son, you're far away from that village. It's at least a day's walk north.
A day? What? I don't have a day. They're going to be there in what? How did I get a day away?
I This is very peculiar. I think there might be some answers we could discover about this, but it would ask something of you. Are you willing?
Sure, like whatever you want. I just need to get back home. So, like, what do you need?
Yes. I'd like you to. I'd like you to eat one of these mushrooms. Come over here.
You want me to eat a mushroom? This is a good use of our time. I'm like, the people are going to die. You understand this, right?
Yeah, this is how you see the visions, right? Because this is how we'll be able to connect everything, and we'll see how time is not just a straight line, and we could wrap back around to the time in which you could save them, if that makes sense to you.
It does not. But you're saying the mushroom's magic, and if I eat it, then I can save the village. That's what I'm hearing here. That's what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, fine. I'll eat the mushroom. All right, give me the mushroom.
All right, you walk towards him, towards the center of the mushroom circle, and as you do, a hint of light makes its way through the canopy, and you see across his face, now that you're a bit closer, that he doesn't look as much like an elf as you thought originally. This man, his skin is very pale, but it's a pale green.
Okay.
And he holds out the mushroom to you, and a few fanged teeth show beneath his smile.
Okay.
And that's where we'll cut it.
I totally eat the mushroom.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. This is the, I mean, who knows where it goes from here?
Absolutely.
I don't know. I don't know. I honestly didn't know when we started.
What I want to know from our viewers down in the comments below is what would they have done differently, and would they eat the mushroom? Are you eating the mushroom? Look, I say grab that mushroom. Okay, a weird green man in a forest offers you mushrooms, you eat them.
Yeah.
Grab that mushroom.
That's going to be the best adventure you have for the next year.
Yeah,
I think
100%.
for sure.
It's gonna go somewhere interesting. That's for sure.
You're right, and I like how you played the sense of urgency. You understood where you are in the story and what you're trying to accomplish. And when all else fails, you can lean on two things. One, what is the situation? And two, who is your character and how would they approach the world? And
right.
I wouldn't have needed that earlier description of 16-year-old Parn, sweaty teenager, kind of gangly.
Right.
Like that's who you're playing. And so you didn't have to do a crazy voice or have him like have some obvious fault to his personality to show who he was.
Right.
I felt that. And so then to make it the scene a little bit more interesting or dynamic, I wanted to pair that with an NPC that would kind of be at odds with
Yeah,
what
sure. It was very calm. Like the more agitated and kind of, upset. Because I mean, look, when you're 16, like first of all, this character probably did legitimately have did feel a sense of anxiousness over it for like good reason. But when you're 16, I remember being 16, everything's the biggest deal in the world, right? At that moment, like everything. The local Dairy Queen is closed. My life is over. This is the biggest deal in the world, right? Yeah.
Right. And the feeling of missing out, the feeling of something important you can do or you could do is being like pulled from you as you learn that where you thought you were is not where you are. And then that gets your head spinning. And maybe that causes you to make a decision that calm version of you wouldn't make.
Right.
So presenting characters given their mindset or their state to kind of give them free reign to not always make the optimal decision, right? Because they're kind of at the mercy of this NPC in this moment.
In most situations like that. So you know the difference between like first order thinking and second order thinking or whatever? Mm-hmm. Like first order thinking is when you this is like a Daniel Kahneman thing. At any rate, it's when you just sort of like, I say something to you and you just react.
Uh-huh.
That's first order thinking, right? Like just think of it. It's what most people commonly call like saying it off the top of their head.
Uh-huh.
Okay. You're not like engaging deep thought. I think that oftentimes when you're like in character in a scene, it's best to just kind of stay in that mode. Right?
Yeah.
Like be in character, think like you've set yourself in the mindset of that character, where you are, who you are, what you need to accomplish. And then you just let the answer flow from that place, right? You don't sit there and like think, well, as yourself, because if you go into that second mode thinking where you like become contemplative, you're going to become yourself again, not the character.
Yeah. And you're going to try to naturally, as our brains try to do, we try to think multiple steps ahead of
Right.
cause and effect of this. And that's the joy of this game that we're playing, is that that cause and effect is the story that we're telling. And if we try to overthink it, then we're just trying to come up with the perfect answer and the perfect solution. And none of the interesting stories that we grew up on that we love ever started that way. You know?
That's right. That's right. And, you know, I mean, it shows how you can be. One of the things that I hope that little vignette, we'll do little play vignettes, 'cause I think it's fun, little challenges, kind of how we would tackle things. But one of the things that I think that's fun about that little vignette is I can be in character and still go along with what clearly where the DM is leading me,
Yes.
right? And still make choices that progress the story, right?
Right. It's
Um,
so easy to either accidentally or purposely, from some history of playing with a player or somebody else that's not even at the table right there, to get adversarial about things. And I find the more that we can trust the other players at the table, the more we can go hand in hand together, instead of like somebody's winning and somebody's losing mentality. It's
yeah.
it's crazy how often that happens, even to very seasoned players.
Well, it's easy to get in the mindset, right? Because there is an adversarial thing going on. Like
Yep.
there's a thing they're trying to kill you. You like you're like your character. You don't want to die. Like of course there is an adversarial thing happening. So it's not like it's that shocking that people would fall into that,
Mhm.
right? But it's more that like you have to always keep in the front of your mind that what you are actually engaging in is a cooperative storytelling thing, right? Now,
Mhm.
there's the in a combat usually the third storyteller is the dice, but in like a social engagement or something like that, that's just more the two of you going back and forth, right? Or like
Right.
some kind of exploration or something like that. Like what if you can do the interesting thing, you have to trust in the other human being that's with you, or know that what. Let me say it this way: you have to know what type of game you're playing.
Mhm.
Okay. Because if you're in a game where the GM's like, look, this is a very deadly world, this is very dangerous, things will just kill you, you know, you have to play smart. Okay. Well, then your characters need to respond accordingly. And they're not just going to like randomly touch things in the middle of like you walk into a room, there's a shiny red gem on the top of a pedestal,
I
and
lick
the
it.
rest of the room is empty. Like, probably don't grab that. Right. But if you know that but if that's not the sort of tone and tenor of what you're playing,
Mhm.
grab it, see what happens. Like get that treasure. If you're playing like a greedy character who would
Oh
just
yeah.
sort of be inclined to grab it and let fun happen. Oh, a trap went off. Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah. Kenders can't help themselves, right? You know,
Right. Yeah.
it just happens to fall in their pockets. And that's where the interesting moments happen, is through things like that. Yeah. I absolutely agree. And the other thing is too, is like when we do these, we're never going to roll dice. And I prefer in these kind of situations that dice either never get rolled or only get rolled when a very key moment happens
Yeah.
that could only be shown of that time dictates that you have to perform in this very moment to do
Yeah.
something very specific, because
Agreed.
otherwise the dice rolling is another example of jumping out of the character and into you as the player, and it's
Yep.
harder the more you do that jumping to kind of stay in the moment and do that first, that first party thinking.
Exactly. The exception I will grant everyone is there are some people who do find it really hard to like talk in character, and that's
Hmm.
okay. Some people just can't. That's not just how their brain works, and I don't want to like make them feel bad or feel like they can't sit at the table. In that case, it can be nice to have the dice there as a little interface where I can just say like make a charisma check of some kind, and you
Right.
just explain to me I say this kind of thing, and here's my little check. And so like even if you're socially awkward or bad at speaking or aren't comfortable talking in the first person, your character might be.
Right.
Right. Like
Yes.
I'm not as strong as my fighter, but I get to roll dice to determine how hard he hits with a
You're
sword.
right.
Right. So if you don't feel like as charismatic or comfortable or socially amiable as your character, then also the dice there can be a fair thing. But you're right. You try to do as much as you can. And part of what you can do as the GM with players like that is like work with them over time, make them feel comfortable that this is a safe space, and let them know that if you're playing a charismatic character, right, you're a friendly guy or gal, whatever you say, no matter how awkward or weird or stilted or whatever you say it, I don't care. I'm going to take it through how I imagine your character said it, right? I'll play
Hmm.
along with you, right? And so you don't need to worry about delivering. Like, I don't need you to be, Abraham Lincoln delivering the Gettysburg Address level of quality and charisma of speech giving, right? But
Off the
if your
top of your
charisma is
head, no
like,
less. Yeah.
right, exactly, exactly. But if
Yeah.
your charisma is such that that's what you're capable of, I will hear that with whatever you say to me, and the characters and the NPCs will respond accordingly.
Right.
Right?
I think too that opens up for people at the table to play a character that they feel like they otherwise wouldn't want to build because puts that weight on their shoulders. I
Absolutely.
I don't want to put the pressure of a new player or somebody that doesn't do a lot of in character talking to not play a charismatic character. It's like, well, you never get to play a bard. Maybe you really want to play a bard.
That's right.
Let's make it work. And I think it's always those open communication lines with your players, and saying, look, like, if that sounds interesting to you, we'll find a way to make it work. And by the time you've gone through X number of sessions, like, you will see improvement. It's like any muscle that you use, you'll go
Exactly right. You got to build it up all the same.
Yeah,
100% agreed.
And people that shy away from that and then just never play those characters, they'll tend to struggle with that. But I mean, I've worked with players and played with players over the years that have gone complete 180 just by building some confidence and just having fun and feeling like they're not going to be made fun of, and they are not going to be put down by the rest of the table by just working their way through it. And those end up being some of the best players to play with.
Exactly. It would be like if you never played a rogue or thief type character, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you yourself were clumsy. Obviously, that sounds insane. That sounds insane, right? Like, it's a power fantasy. It's escapist. I'm clumsy as all get out, but like, it's cool to play a rogue who can be nimbly bimbly and do cool acrobatic stuff. Like, how much fun is that, right? That's neat. We all do that without a second thought. Why would the other thing be any different, right? So, yeah.
I mean, there's so many like realms of like kinds of characters that can bridge that gap for you too as you make them. So let's say I'm really uncomfortable playing charismatic character. I don't want to talk all the time. Which one of Penn and Teller is the one that doesn't talk? Is it Teller?
Oh God, yeah. Teller's one that doesn't talk. Yeah.
So you could act more like a mime. You can be very charismatic. You can be very much a showman, and you can very much be like, everything is through your personality.
Teller is super charismatic for somebody who never talks on stage,
and there's a ton of
talks in interviews and stuff.
A ton of personality.
Yeah,
and like, there's ego and that there's confidence and all that. How fun would that be to play that character at the table and be like, sure. I stand with my head slightly cocked, and give a wicked smile. Right? It's like, you got the stats to back it up. You don't have to like, ooh, that person doesn't say much, but they're really I'm in awe of them. Like, that's a fun character, and see how that character evolves over time, and ideally you have a big giant magician friend, and then boom, you're in. So
100% agreed.
All right, well, let's get into today's main topic, because I don't want to cut it short today and really dig into magic, because I know you've got a lot of opinions.
I do have a lot of opinions.
The history of magic in Dungeons and Dragons or any tabletop RPGs. And so I'm gonna let you kick us off and why you think this is such a controversial thing and everyone's wrong and you're right.
Yeah, okay. Let's start at the beginning. Okay, here we go. So long ago, before the dawn of man. No, okay. I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here, so stay with me, people. I'll try to keep it interesting. Here we are. Magic, here's my basic supposition, hypothesis. When we play fantasy games of any type, this is not just D&D, but anything, magic, which generally is a part of those fantasy games, needs to feel different, otherworldly, interesting, creative, imaginative, and apart from other stuff. It should be doing and be in a different class than not magic, whatever that is, right? Like
everything else.
And that's not to say that fighters can't be highly have a high efficacy. That's not to say that like that other non-magical people can't be interesting. Of course they should be, right? Doing their own thing. What I'm saying is, when magic becomes too bound by straight rules and you do X to do Y, and it's all very like linear and unimaginative and boring and kind of like questionably effective, and importantly, too focused on combat. That's a really important element. Okay. Mm-hmm. Magic becomes not magical. I believe that like current modern D&D and like Pathfinder would be in the same place, and like but not like there are games where magic is treated a little better. Um but like certainly the two big ones, magic is boring as just cardboard on drywall. Okay, it is nothing. It is not magical. There are a few exceptions, like a few cool spells throughout the entire stuff that feels where you can still be creative, but most of it is just like the most rote, boring stuff because it has been reined in. And
Yeah.
this is the end of a journey that we have been on since the 90s when people started complaining about quadratic wizards versus linear fighters and that wizards became really powerful and blah, 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 blah. Yes, of course, wizards became really powerful. Like that's because when they were created in second edition, or like not second edition, sorry, when they were created in D&D and then AD&D and throughout second edition, you started with like a D4 hit points, homie, and you
Yeah.
had like one of the highest experience charts to level. It was hard to survive, okay? And your reward for playing a crappy character for like the first, X number of levels of the game, where by the way, most of the time when your round came up, like when your initiative came up in the round, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you ever played a wizard in like in second edition, but here was you ready for what you did? I would say 90% of the time before level probably 7 when your initiative came up. It's your initiative in combat. You ready? So it's okay, Vince, it's your turn. I'm playing the wizard. What do you do? Pass. Nothing. Go. Next turn.
Yeah.
That's your turn.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I got like 7 spells, guys. Okay.
Mhm.
You like this is some goblins. You guys look like you got this.
Right.
Okay. You don't need me to weigh in this situation.
If the tide
Okay.
turns and I need to use some of my very limited resource to save our butts, I will do that. But until then,
Right.
handle it.
And so what has happened is we introduced cantrips and make magic more consistent. So now that you can do something every round, and that was done so that magic users didn't just sit there and feel like they were kind of just doing nothing. And then as a response to that, now every member of the party is doing damage and monster hit points shot to 1,000,000, and now spells can't level them anymore. Like the coolest thing in the world was to walk into a room and just be like, oh, there's a bunch of enemies and they're all together and you're the wizard. And you go, boom, shalakalak, boom, fireball. Say what now? And everybody dies.
Yes.
Okay, because when you cast that one fireball or the couple fireballs you had a day, and like at level, you walk into like the knoll den or whatever, and they're all together, and you're just like, hey, guess what, guys?
Problem
Fireball
solved.
says what? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you solve the encounter in one spell. It felt amazing. Now you had to put up with doing nothing a lot of the time. So what they did is they took it from a very spiky experience where like, you had phenomenal cosmic power sometimes,
Right.
right? But often you didn't. They took it from that to this like milk toast normal band experience. The other thing that happened is they reined in all the spells to stop all the off-label usages, because this is my other argument.
Yeah.
Magic to feel magical has to be able to be used in creative ways, right? So take a very simple example. I'm sure you know the spell Tensor's Floating Disk.
Uh-huh.
Yeah?
Uh-huh.
Okay. One of my favorite things you could do with Tensor's Floating Disk was sit in it and just
Yeah.
like scoot around.
I got
right? It was fun.
flying carpet.
So for example, you come to a trap in a dungeon. You know there's a trap on the floor, but you don't know how to disarm it. Okay. Right. But you know that like hidden amongst the stones are pressure plates that if you step on, they will cause a lot of damage or kill you.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. I will make a Tensor's Floating Disk. I will put somebody in it. I will float them across. They will get out on the other side. I will bring the disc back. Da 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 da. You have used your magic in this clever way to solve a challenge.
Right.
Right.
And it
This is
used
exactly what should be encouraged.
it used a resource. It was not able
right.
to it was not able to be abused because you have a limited amount of resources. I want to be creative based on the situation that we're playing in to feel like I am rewarded for coming up with creative ideas.
Exactly. That what I just described is literally not allowed anymore
Yeah, you
in
can't
the
put
current incarnation of the spell.
living things
Okay.
on it or anything like that.
It's just like there's all sorts of it works in a dumb way now that makes it very frustrating. I'm not even going to go into it. It'll make me angry. At any rate, the point is that like magic needs to feel fantastical, and that means that like sometimes it needs to play a bit outside the bounds and things like that. That doesn't mean that the other classes need to be bad or boring comparatively. I am terrified of high level fighters in D&D, but like and like could they kill a high level wizard? Most of the time no, because not because they can't strike him dead, they certainly can. The
Mhm.
wizard probably has like 40 hit points, a couple connections, and he's gone.
Mhm.
He is dead. But what the wizard's going to do is just be like, bye,
Right.
and teleport away. And like, yeah, that's how that fight should go, right? Conan comes swinging for the sorcerer. If he gets a hold of him, that guy's dead.
Yeah.
But
As
the
we
sorcerer
saw.
is going to logically use magic to escape because he's not an idiot. But, you
Right.
know, he doesn't kill Conan.
Right. Yeah. The magic user will be able to get away and then find the opportune time where it's on their terms. If they choose to be rid of you, or they'll have somebody else do it for them.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just leads to a fun ongoing story.
I think since second edition, we've seen this kind of homogenization of classes where everybody, there's certainly, different roles and people do different things, but no one's bar is a 0 on the list of options that a character can do. Right. Like where it used to be where, a wizard, their average damage was 0. Their spike damage was the best.
Encounter over,
right?
Yes.
And now it's like, oh, we're going to take that ceiling and we're going to bring it way down, probably lower than the fighters, unless you're in that situation where there's
you can never play a wizard that basically does more damage than a well-tuned warrior.
Unless there's a cube of 4x4, it's 16 goblins sitting there, and then you hit them all with the fireball. But even then, with the hit point bloat, we still think of fireball as a thing that just melts the whole room. And by and large, to monsters your level, it doesn't do that anymore.
That's right.
Like, ow, they're all half dead. And now they're coming at you. No, that's still a lot of damage, and that's still very valuable. Let's not get it wrong. But it's not the same as like I bring a nuke to a knife fight. And it's a lot different. And then when we got into like 4th edition, I think 4th edition was the pinnacle of like
everybody's just doing the same thing. Everybody's doing weird magical things. It all feels the same.
They just have a different color card with a different name on it. But you could just cut the name off the power cards, shuffle them up, and hand them out. And the game would still play the same way it played.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. I played a game this last week, okay, as of our recording this. And we were fighting so it's a big fight, like a big fight. This is like a boss fight, right? Mm-hmm. But the boss had minions, not uncommon. Okay. Mm-hmm. And they're not like anything special. They're just like, they're tough, like monk-ish type fighter things, but whatever. They were sort of weird, but don't worry about it. Just think of them like there's sort of 10 fighter people around the boss. Not weird, right?
Right.
And then there's like a lieutenant, and then the big boss, and then there's like a horde of undead and stuff like that, right? Okay, whatever. Everything you'd expect in a boss fight. And so with those 10 fighters, they were all kind of grouped up. So in order, they got hit by a fireball, a horrid wilting, and a circle of death. And they all kept fighting. Okay.
Wait, were they the boss the whole time?
All right. And I'm like, okay. Now, don't get me wrong. It did a lot of damage. Like chopping through them clearly would have taken eons. Like if we had just relied on the fighters to go up there and just be like hackathon through them, it would have taken just days of combat. But I was like, this is the point is everything just adjusted to make it so like that's the expected output. It didn't do anything special. It was just like if you didn't have this, the fight would have just taken 3 times as long.
Yeah. And what other resources that you didn't use because you did those spells, what other resources would you have had? Would you have had enough of those resources, whether it's, healing surge or potions or healing spells or whatever, would you have had to go through instead?
Right.
So resource like management is not just an individual character. It's also amongst your whole party. You also have a giant pool for your party, and it's about resource management within the whole party. And so you're kind of helping the group out.
The other side of this, by the way, that like to remove this, because I don't want everybody to feel like I'm just an addition warrior or something. Like it's not that. It's really not, despite things I'm going to say. But like the other thing about magic, like let's go back to the sort of sources, right? The fantasy literature and stuff. I think the other thing that makes magic feel like magic is when it's unusual, when it has like a cost to you or a limitation. Like it is an extremely powerful thing, but there's always some governor switch on it. Right. That's what makes it special. So like Sword and Sorcery, I mentioned Conan earlier, that kind of stuff, those kind of books, magic tends to be like destructive to your soul or your morality or something. Like you have to sacrifice things for it or whatever. Think Dark Sun, right? Where people who use magic like literally destroyed the planet, right? Because they just destroy the life around them when they cast their spells. Or like you make deals with dark entities to have magic, right? Or whatever, you know.
You can't be a good guy wizard for long in most worlds.
Yeah, so
sorcery.
I don't know if you've ever watched Dragon Prince. It's like a relatively new show that was on Netflix. It's a really good animated thing. I think it's from the same people who did like Avatar or something. Some of the same people who did Avatar. It's a really good show. Anyways, in that world, there's kind of this two continents, and like the right side, or there's kind of this big continent. And the right side of the continent's all like different kinds of elves. They're very imaginative and creative, and all use different kinds of their own elemental magics. And the left continent's all humans who hate the elves at the start of the show, and so on and so forth. And the humans none of them can use the elves' elemental magic. They can only use dark magic, and they have to like destroy things to use their magic. But everybody's just accepted it, right? Like they're like the good people, right? But it's just like, this is what you got to do. We can't not have magic. So like the court wizard, who's like a nice guy and a dad and has 2 kids and is like good friends with the king and by all accounts a good person, is like and like summoning like crushing innocent creatures in his grip and like letting their blood run out to cast his magic. And everybody's like, good job, Steve. Well done. Well done.
Well, I was picturing it at like a lower level. He's like, I got to smash this chair. I'm breaking things in order to do it. He's like, I threw this TV off a roof and it allowed me to cast lightning bolts. I was like, oh shit.
No, it's always life they have to destroy.
Sure.
But at any rate, or like the Vancian magic system of D&D, which is based on like having hard resource limitations, right? That was the explanation in Vance's Dying Earth, was that like it had this complicated memorization system of how the wizards had to do everything, and they were very limited on resources, right?
Yeah.
And on and on and on and on. Like I don't care. But that cost or restriction system or both also makes it feel like magic.
Yes.
Right? Because it then is like when that's not present. So like take the Harry Potter world, for example. Okay. Near as I can tell, there's like nothing to stop those wizards from going ham 24/7.
Yeah. You could just keep spamming.
Right.
As far as I know.
So like, what is happening? Why are they the laziest people in the universe?
I mean, they got all the pots scrubbing themselves and shit too. So like the standard like boring life chore stuff isn't even on their agenda. Like they don't have to do any of the menial tasks in their whole lives.
Right. They could just be like what the top end of their power and what they could accomplish seems infinite. That's why the world feels very unmagical to me. I'll not even lie. Okay. It feels like it's just, I don't know. It's weird and rote and mundane. But anyways, the point is that I think for it to truly feel other, it has to have limitations, costs, balance. Like that's how it's balanced.
Right.
Phenomenal cosmic power, itty bitty living space. Right. That's the.
Yes. Yeah. And even like there are other novels that I'm reading one right now. And I'm going to blank on the name of the series. It was a 80s fantasy series. Dragonborn Chair is the very first book in the series. But anyway, in this world, magic is very limited, and it's looked at as very mystical. The limiting factor is it's first of all, it is tied to like you're destroying yourself. It's very like Raceland from Dragonlance, right? Where
yeah, sure.
You have a chance of seriously hurting or killing yourself by using it. But more importantly, their other limiting factor is it's unreliable. It doesn't always work. And when you call for the power doesn't always answer. And that in and of itself is a level of fear associated with relying on it. And it's like,
oh, that's good. Yeah.
And there's a level of added like pressure or stress, to any situation where it's like, we need you to teleport us all out of here right now. And you're like, I fucking hope so. And then you like smack your stick on the ground and be like, boop. That kind of thing is that limiting factor of the more your source of your power is limited, the more powerful it should be. In theory, a fighter can swing his sword 10 billion times a day.
Yeah, just infinitely, right? Yeah, I mean, sure, humans eventually get tired. We don't tend to have those like exhaustion mechanics in games.
Those don't
it's
exist.
Like the fighter never runs out of swing sword.
Yes.
Right?
Right. And so that is an unlimited resource. And on the other side, we have an extremely limited resource. And yet, they don't feel like the power balance is anywhere near where it should be. And you could say, well, now they have cantrips, so now you can just do that infinitely as well. And I'm like, how is this a different coat of paint on a, like you said, shooting a crossbow?
Like just shooting a bow. Cool.
Right.
Neat. Like it's what it feels like, right? I'm just shooting a bow.
And then
again, I've never played in a game where we track ammunition. So like we have to actually just assume all archers have infinite arrows.
No. Yeah. There's no limited resource to that. And spells, cantrips with touch. It's just like, it's a warhammer. Just knock you on the head. But it's just my fingers. My fingertips are a little bit icy. And they like to do things where they add different effects. That's what makes it feel magical, Vince, because then you're slowed by 10 feet. Now, granted.
Oh, good. Then I have an extra dumb thing to track that will probably not matter. Yeah, great. Good. Right. Excellent. Let's do that.
Let's forget the fact that in order to do that, you had to touch them with your hand, and you're wearing a bathrobe, and they have a mace the size of your skull. But now they can move slower. So
got him.
Boom, got him. All right, so we've kind of broken down some of the issues or some of the things that we struggle with, and I do as well. I feel like one of the things that we're core at for some of this is not even so much that like trying to make a balanced game within the rules of the book. It is the actual factual, how does the game feel like we're playing a fantasy world? How does magic manifest itself to make it feel like we're not just playing a medieval times?
Yeah, sure.
Right? That you just have a couple of B-film special effects added in post.
Yep.
Because it often feels that way. It doesn't feel like these really amazing things are happening. And a lot of that is, I think, like you said, being really restrictive outside of combat, of really showing what magic can do in a situation that is not immediately life-threatening. However, you find yourself in a tough situation where the regular resources at your disposal are not sufficient. How can magic show itself as it's the true power it can bring to the situation?
Yes.
It's not there.
Magic should do cool stuff in combat. Sure, fine, great. But that's just different. That ultimately is just going to be like different coats of paint on damage dice with kicker effects, right? Mm-hmm. It's all just, as we say in Magic the Gathering, it's all just kicker, right? Everything is either kicker. Yeah. So but like outside of combat, and even using combat spells in other unusual situations, all my favorite spells are things that are just like weird outside of combat things, right? Phantom Steed is one of my favorite spells of all time, right? Mm-hmm. Like summoning a bunch of ghost horses for you and your friends to ride that just like ignore terrain and can run across water and sweep you across the countryside really fast. Like, what an amazingly cool and magical spell.
Right.
Right? Like, that's neat.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you show up to the king's throne, riding through on those things, there better be a reaction.
That's got style.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Exactly. And so on and so forth, right? Like fabricate, where you can just like you take a pile of lumber and you make a set of stairs or a bridge or something. Like that kind of stuff is just cool. It's just cool and fun, and it begs for creativity, right? Where the more imaginative you are, the more high yield that spell becomes effectively.
Right. I think that there's some of this is a little bit of a tinfoil hat theory for myself over the years, and I've seen, especially in 5th edition, that they're pulling away a lot of that from the game in general, and Magic is a key pain point for them, that require creativity to play the game and require you to think on the fly to play the game, and that it's not something that can be explained in 3 sentences in a stat block.
Right.
And they've pulled that out to make the game more accessible or for new players, or feel like it's easier to palate and understand exactly what we do and how we do without having a seasoned player that walks you through it, a seasoned DM that kind of helps guide you and show you all the things the world is your oyster that you're capable of doing, but not putting it on you and expecting that from you from the get-go. It's like, how do we grow our player base? Here's how. We grow it by not requiring existing seasoned players in order to get new players. It feels like a marketing thing for me, and I struggle with that. Luckily, it's still Dungeons and Dragons, and we can make up all the rules we want, or ignore the rules we don't want. So,
I mean, and I want to hit 2 things real quick. One, for those who think like I'm over I don't know, romanticizing magic or something, and you're like, well, I don't really care to play wizards or whatnot, blah blah blah. So Vince, I think you're stupid. Magic is fine. It works. It seems to work fine for me. I play rangers and stuff, and it does what I want it to do. That's fine. Like, I'm not going to yuck your yum. Okay, but like, what I want is all of the classes to kind of feel like their own version, power fantasy of their thing, right? Like, there was a story in, I think, Dragon Magazine 200, John, called The Best. I don't know. This is probably something you never read, but it's always stuck with me. Basically, like, there's an evil dragon in the room, like a big red dragon. Okay. And we've got, and this guy shows up. He's like, I've got to hire a party to kill this dragon. It's been destroying the countryside, blah, blah, blah. And I need the best. And so he recruits like a fighter and a rogue and a cleric and a wizard and blah, blah, blah. Like the classic perfect party, the Golden Girls party, because that's what they're all based on.
Yes.
And and so he hires them, and like it goes through the story of like only the best fighter could have done this. Only the best rogue could have done, scaled this wall and undone these traps and so on and so forth. Right. And so they go that, and then they get to the dragon's cave and it's empty. And the guy who's with them polymorphs back into the dragon and kills them because he had specifically been wearing them down on his entrance into their lair to weaken them so that he could kill the best adventurers in the realm, the only ones who would ever pose a threat to him.
Got him.
Okay. And it's just such a wonderful story, right? But like the point being is that all of them felt like they were good at doing what they did. That's what I want, right? I want the fighter to be a cool martial threat that has swing sword and is dangerous and has those kinds of plays and tactics and capabilities and on and on and on. I'm just asking that magic is something very special because in the end, it is a big part of what makes fantasy. It's important, right? That like a fighter concept could go into almost any game, magic or not, real world, modern, Rainbow Six type of stuff. You could play that type of class, right? And it wouldn't be weird. But like magic is this thing specific to fantasy, and it needs to feel fantastical. I've got these little books with me. These are the Wizard Spell Compendiums, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we go from second edition. This is like thousands of spells. Okay. And the reason I love this stuff, like things like this, is because one, you have to really read the spell to understand what it does. It's not just like incredibly obvious. I'm not asking for bad UX. I'm just saying like it's purposely somewhat open-ended, so it's not structured like an Excel spreadsheet. Okay. And two, reading these makes me feel like a wizard because I have to like pour through the tome and like, aha, I found a good one,
They're only allowed to be read over a single candle.
Yes.
Right? You got to blow off the dust. And if I remember right, mine are over there, but if I remember right, a lot of the descriptions, there's a lot of flavor to the descriptions.
Oh God, so much.
It's not about the mechanics. And they're purposely described in a way to inspire and to like get creative thinking juices flowing. And it's like, oh,
yes,
you find this ancient scroll on the floor of the Lich's chambers. It looks like it hasn't been unrolled for 1,000 years. And it's the weirdest fucking thing. And you're like, what the hell? But now you've got access to this weird thing. It doesn't even like purely understanding what it could do. But like you now have this knowledge and like the feeling that you've gained in your magical arts and your ability to use this in some weird niche situation. But that situation may just arise right before that dragon shows himself and you allows you to see that he was the dragon the whole time. And you're able to get your group to safety, via your fantasy.
I want to give you an exact example of that, John.
Okay.
I just flipped to a random page.
Okay.
This is a spell called Chastise. I believe it's from the Al-Qadim setting originally. Doesn't matter. This spell is used to verbally chastise any individual who somehow offends the wizard. The offense must be real, e.g., if the wizard catches someone trying to pick his pocket. If the wizard tries to chastise someone for an imagined slight, the spell has no effect.
There you go.
So already I love everything about this. Thou have offended me, sir.
You bite your thumb at me, sir?
Exactly.
I do bite my thumb.
If the target fails his saving throw, he will feel an overwhelming need to abase himself before the caster. What an incredible spell. Okay. I love everything about that, top to bottom, no notes. All right.
Because that situation and that response to the casting of that spell changes the entire like scene that's playing out. And
Yes.
it alters the future of the storyline
Yes.
without, making you have to, well, I cast sleep on the whole room and everyone falls asleep. Like, no, 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 no. Now, this was the king that's apologizing to you.
Yes, because you know some wizard's going to fire it off at
Yeah.
some noble who was rude to them. Yes,
Yeah.
100%. And then shenanigans ensue. Like
Yes.
that spell might as well be called "Start a New Adventure."
Right. Yes.
So
yeah. It's also
that's what good magic should be doing, right? Stuff like that.
I want to use that spell right now. That spell could also be renamed "I'm not trying to rob you," because that is what Gandalf casts on Bilbo when he thinks he's trying to take the ring. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Oh,
So I think that when magic has unusual effects that do require some education, and like that's ultimately I think at the bottom of this, right?
yeah.
It means that we have to, as a group, say that like a good magic system is somewhat open, is somewhat relies on imagination. It does require a higher skill floor. That's
Yeah.
just reality, right? It's probably not this is your first game you ever played. Play the spellcaster. That's probably just not it. There could be other little classes with more controlled spellcasting for that to like dip your toes and get into it. You can have skill floor variance among the things you play in a game, right? And that's fine. I think that's okay because ultimately I'm not interested in my magic being an MMO where I like click button and effect happens. And there's like no real difference between the fighter guy clicking his button and effect happens and me, the spellcaster, clicking my button and the spell happens. That's why I have a game master so that I can say, hey, what if I did this thing? Would that spell, how would that spell work in this situation? Then the GM goes, think about that. Okay, well, read me the rest of the text. They read the rest of the text. You're like, okay, yeah, that'll work. Cool. And then this is what happens. Maybe it doesn't work exactly how you want. And now interesting things have arisen, right? Like, but it allows for that space.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, we'll probably need to do a whole other episode on on how different player personalities get rewarded and get satisfaction in playing the game in different ways, as well as I think that this is kind of an offshoot to that is how each different character class showcases themselves and becomes the star in certain situations, and that needs to be kind of tailor-made, built into the core mechanics of the game to allow for those things to happen. You can still make it happen. And everyone you're playing 5th edition or Pathfinder 2nd edition, whatever now, obviously it can still happen. It feels like when we do those things at our table, it almost feels like we're making the agreement to close the book for a second and do what feels best to us. And it's just a struggle for me to feel like you have to know what all the rules are to know which ones to bend, instead of letting those rules kind of reinforce the creative, fun storytelling at the table. So that's really interesting. I wanted to talk real quickly about Shadow Dark magic. I played some
please.
Shadow Dark recently.
Yeah.
And I think they have an amazing take on it. And I don't necessarily think that it's like universally straight up better. But one sentence: there are no spell save DCs.
I like it already.
Magic is powerful, and if a spell is cast on you, the spell is cast on you. So that in and of itself, amazing. Next, you have the based on the power of the spell or the level of the spell, it has a DC check that you have to make to successfully execute the casting of the spell. So if the spell is more complex and more difficult, it's harder for me to execute it. But if I do it, it just happens.
So we've shifted left. The RNG is happening on the summoner side, where it's like, struggle to get it. Come on, magic. Okay, cool.
Come on, please do it. And then the other thing is, it's different for different classes. But a good example is like if I'm a spellcaster and I'm trying to cast sleep on this giant toad, and I fail, something is cracked in my brain, and I can't cast sleep again for the rest of the day. until I get a
Sure.
long rest.
Okay. Okay.
So I've lost the text in my mind. That's why I failed the spell casting. And now suddenly, now our whole situation with our group has changed. We now know, oh no, Bill can't put the toads to sleep anymore.
Right.
What do we do?
Got to
And
find a new strategy.
got to find a new strategy. But on the front end, you aren't ever aha'd or like I gotcha'd with that, right? Because it also in playing, it just felt a lot more positive and a lot more like if I screwed up my roll, it's like, oh damn it, I screwed up my roll. Especially when the cleric screwed up their heal roll. You're like,
Yeah,
oh,
especially because yes, I love this so much. Especially since a lot of trend with modern things is to allow like the fear of zotting the big boss, right? Where somebody brings down one spell. It's all become like MMO bosses. You know,
yeah,
like you go fight an MMO boss, you have like controls and stuff like that. It just says like immune, 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 immune over their head because they're
uh-huh,
just the big bosses are like immune to all the good things. So it's just a DPS race, right?
mm-hmm,
That's mostly what they've become. Whereas this like working is really great. Sure, they might have like resistances or other things in Shadow Dark. I'm sure the monsters still interact with the magic in some way. But like certain things work better on certain people, I'm sure. But I love that. That's great.
yeah.
That's great.
And there's other stuff built into it too, so it's not just like they're not I win buttons. The sleep, the amount of hit points or hit dice or levels of monsters that you can sleep is then in some case like it's connected to your level as a wizard, right?
Sure.
The more powerful you are, the more likely you are. You can't just go in and put
Very logical. Totally
the
love
dragon
it.
to sleep. The other thing that I like about it too is that you don't have this, again, talking about confrontational moments. You are not set up to get frustrated for the DM that saves all of your spells every time ad nauseum. And you're just like,
Yep.
I feel like I did nothing
Yep.
all day because you just saved every single spell.
Yep.
That feels worse than I when I roll and I was like the thing is almost dead and I roll my sword attack and I rolled a 3. I don't get frustrated nearly as much as when I try to cast lightning bolt on it and you're like, well, his dex save was a 46. And you're like, fucking 46?
Yep.
What are we doing here?
Yep. Right.
Like, you
Exactly.
know?
Exactly. Like, oh, cool. Just don't use magic. Got it.
You're right.
My spells are have no point here. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
My bad.
And like, by the way, sometimes that can be okay to use as monsters if that's the general understanding of the game. That sometimes the fighter's going to run in and like, oh, these weapons have no effect here. You've got to bring it down with magic. You know, that's another thing. Older editions tend to be really swingy like that.
Yes.
Right. Where like certain monsters would just be like immune to swords and certain monsters were like immune to magic. And like you had to kind of balance the two. You need a party to be successful. Weird.
Right. Yeah. I think part of that of like players really wanting all this variety in the amount of classes that they can play, which I think by and large is a good thing. You have to double dip on rolls a lot of places, but also it's so spread out and so diluted. They couldn't design the rest of the game to require certain roles so much because people are like, we don't want to have a healer and we don't want to have someone that can deal with the understanding what the spells are that are
Right.
in these runes and stuff. And so it's like, well, you could run here with a group of 4 Hobbit Rangers and you can play all the way through this campaign and you'll be fine.
Sure.
Or old school wasn't really like that. It asked the balance a little bit more.
Well, or you would just get to a place and be like, hey, guess what, guys? We can't finish this. So
yeah.
let's go. And you just
Yeah.
leave. Like, and that's just it. You just can't do the rest of that dungeon. You got to go find something else to do. Go follow a different room or like, this place is not for you.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just like an acceptable answer.
But we as
You
players
don't get to do everything.
we as players don't accept that though.
Right.
We're like, no, we'll figure it out. There's got to be a way. There's got to be a way.
Which, by the way, sometimes that might be the case. And yes, oh, cool. You did a creative thing and you got your way around it. Continue on. Thumbs up. Right. But the point is, there was real blocks that you either had to like very creatively problem solve or have the right mix for, or decide you just can't. You're not tall enough to ride this ride. Right.
Right.
Like, and if you're not tall enough to ride this ride, you either turn around and don't get on the ride, or you get a trench coat and get 2 kids to sit on each other's shoulders and trick the ride person that like, no, we are actually 1 6-foot tall person. Thank you very much.
Right. Maybe don't say it exactly like that, but
Yeah.
yes. Maybe
Hello, I am 1 6-foot tall human.
I would like 1 ticket, please. So to turn this on its head of on positive side, I have questions for you, Vince. Is one, how does existing like playing in 5th edition, playing Pathfinder 2nd edition, those kinds of things. How do we deal with this within our own games? How can we make Magic better? And two, if you would have the world is your oyster, and you could change how Magic worked or come up with your own Magic system to make it better, maybe what is the outline of what that would look like?
Yeah, sure. So first off, here's the easiest example, the easiest answer I can give to, like, if you're playing D&D or Pathfinder 2nd or stuff like that, right? Which is, let people be creative with Magic and ignore the pedantic, specific rules text that clearly tells you that thing wouldn't work. So here's what I mean. So sometimes a spell will say, like, this only works on a creature, and somebody will be like, well, can I use this very obvious spell on this object? So, like, can I float this thing with my spell over here because it's a spell that floats people? Can I also use it on this bucket?
Sure.
Okay. The spell says creature, it doesn't say object. Just let it be. Just let it be. Let him float the bucket. Okay?
Right.
Just float the bucket. Right? And I'm using, like, a very simple, silly example, but the point being is that, like, let people be creative with it and work with them. It doesn't mean they always have to succeed 100%. You can have things go weird. Yeah, you float the bucket, and then it accidentally tips over and spills out some of the gold you were carrying in the bucket on the ground, and makes a bunch of noise. Whatever. Okay, yeah. I don't know.
I got an example too. You're in a fight, and your fighter is being grabbed and bear hugged by this giant gnoll, and now the fighter can't, like, help you keep you alive because you're wearing a bathrobe, right?
Yeah, sure.
I cast grease on the fighter.
Such a good example.
Right?
Love it.
According to the rules book, you can't do that. It has to go on the floor, and it has to go X squares by X squares. I want to grease that pig up so he slides out of that gnoll thing so he can save my ass, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, John. That is literally exactly what I'm talking about. Like, when somebody wants to do a cool thing, it's not going to be like, and who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? Why would the game be negative because you let that happen? What possible harm is that doing? That sounds awesome. Okay.
Yeah. I think that there's this innate worry, and I can put myself in that the headspace of a DM, because I am guilty of it. We're all guilty of it, of worrying about you give an inch, they take a mile. And I think it always comes down to that. And I need to remind myself of it often too. It's like, keep giving inches. You will know when they've taken a mile, and they'll know. And then you have the conversation of being like, God damn it, all you do is you make the monk strip down to his tighty whities, and you grease him up at the start of every fight, and he just slides through like a goddamn slip and slide, karate kicking and spinning the whole way through. This ain't fair. Right?
We've gone too far.
Right.
Yeah.
We've gone too far.
No, that's just it. You as the GM, this is an important point. You as the GM, you're not the Supreme Court. Okay? You don't have to rely on precedent.
Yeah.
All right? Like, you can say yes in one situation and no in a similar but adjacent situation. You're not bound by precedent. Okay?
Right.
Like, you can just educate and explain why and have a conversation and say, no, I think in this case, I'm going to say no to that. And here's why, because I think it would be, like, bad with this particular encounter. If you want to try something else, of course, I'm not going to make you waste your turn trying it. I'll just tell you straight up that won't work. Do you have any other ideas? And then they'll try idea number 2, and life will go on.
Yeah. Most people will be like, I appreciate you not, making me waste all my things and then tell me no. That's the worst feeling. It's like, that didn't work. But, like, also back to the greased up monk and the tidy whities. The first time they try that, you damn sure you're going to let them do it, because that's amazing, right? It's when people try to, like, well, we just found that this is the single tool that works for all situations. And that's what we're worried about. And that is not, no one has fun in playing that kind of game anyway. So you're really worrying for nothing 99 times out of 100. The one time that it does happen, you catch it on the front end. You even, like, you let it slide a couple of times until you realize it's an issue.
Yeah, and then you just say, like, hey guys, come on, let's chill on this.
Yeah. But you've set up the environment around your play table that rewards creativity and fun ways to approach things. And if you have that environment at your table, your games will be so much more fun. And that's what we're all here for, to play anyway, right? Just having fun.
Agreed.
Okay,
Now
so
to answer the other part of your question, which
yes.
is like what magic system would I do if I had like my sort of druthers? Oh man, I don't even know. Like obviously I am quite in love with original sort of like very limited prep style Vancian magic that like Wizards had in second edition D&D. I think it's actually really good. I think it forces like really critical choices. You have to think ahead, you have to be creative. Yeah, like all these things are good. But I mean, I like honestly, I just want the magic system to have those components we've talked about, right? Like cost or restriction in some way that's interesting and narratively compelling. What you described in Shadow Dark actually sounds pretty great. But yeah, I could see a bunch of other systems. I want it to feel different. I can use it in creative ways, and I want a lot of it. Like
Yeah.
ultimately, what I want out of Magic more than anything, John, is a big pile of it. Nothing makes me nothing makes me more angry than just like all-purpose Garbo magic. That's just like you
Right.
do magic that just does everything you want. I love the idea of magic being very specific. Like I'm watching Frieren Beyond Journey's End right now. It's like an anime. It's pretty good. It like won some awards and stuff. At any rate, the main character is a wizard, and she spends her whole life. She's very old. It's like an elf that's 1,000+ years old, and her whole obsession is just collecting weird grimoires full of unusual spells. That like this one, like literally, they come to a statue and she's like, "Oh, well, I don't have the right spell for cleaning this one. I have the spell for cleaning bronze statues. This one's made of stone." Right? Like that's how specific the magic is in this world, right? And I love that. Like what a fun like I love when magic is like when it's specific and does things like that chastise spell that we talked
Oh
about,
yeah.
right? Like I like just a big pile of magic because again, in the specificity, it feels magical,
Hmm.
right?
He needed this exact wizard was at this exact point in time with the exact right spell prepared, and this like amazing thing happened that any
Yes.
other day, when any other person, in any other situation, it would have played out like every other interaction that came before the king, but not this day. And that
Not
is
this
what
day. Today you will be chastised, Your Highness.
yes, you're just like he's over the side of the throne, and you're just like whipping him with your little stick. You're like, that is not nice to say.
That's right.
Oh, it's so good. So I feel like there's a balance there too, because I could see there's a contradictory of the two things you said. One, flexibility and
Yes.
creativity in how you use things, and two, we're talking about specificity. But
Yes.
those are not mutually exclusive.
No,
Like
no.
you could have this very interesting thing of that chastise feels very very specific, but you'd be surprised how many opportunities there could be for that would have all sorts of different outcomes because of the way that you interacted with it. So I think that you allow and you kind of foster an environment of creativity and flexibility, yet you have the quantity of the masses, a giant tome filled with tomes that's inside. There's a lockbox with more tomes of
Yes.
more crazy spells.
That's right.
Because
And there's lots of things like this in the world. There's plenty of tools that are built to be very specific, but yet you use them very creatively all the time, right? And that's just the way the kind of life is. So it's the same thing.
yeah, there's all sorts of very specific tools. I mean, us as miniature painters, we probably know this as much as other people that like there are so many very niche specific tools in the miniature painting hobby, but they don't do anything 99.9% of the time. But that one thing you need them for, it is light years better than just using a toothpick or whatever.
My wife's credit card fell into the like she put it in her pocket, then washed her jeans, and it fell into the lint trap. When I took the lint trap out, it slid down in, and it was like in
Oh,
literally the body of the dryer. And I'm like, so it's this little thin line down there in the body of the dryer. I got a wooden spoon, put some peanut butter on the end, and stuck it down there and stuck it to the credit card, pulled it right back out, and I was a hero, right? I'm pretty sure neither peanut butter nor the wooden spoon, both of which were made for a very specific purpose, were intended to get credit cards out of lint-filled dryer traps. Yet they did the job admirably and effectively.
we have the technology, right?
That's right.
And that's a much more interesting story than like I just kind of could wedge my tweezers for my eyebrows down there a bit, and I was like, no,
Right.
right? So that's absolutely it. Yeah, and I like the idea of like in a world where there's so many wild, crazy, obscure spells, the rewarding and the collecting of spells and the way you acquire spells
Yes.
is suddenly this whole amazing aspect of the game that by and large doesn't exist in most of the D&D games that most of us run.
That's right.
Because you're like,
Find those ancient rare tomes and spells. Yes.
and a lot of that comes back to is like, well, I have the thing that does that thing. So I have Fireball. So I don't also need Lightning Bolt, and I don't also need Poison Cloud, and I don't also need, because like this one's just really, really good at that thing. Like we
Right.
got to have less all-purpose tools and more like. Really,
No, we need Darson's fiery translocation. What?
Yeah.
What does that do? I don't know, but it sounds awesome.
We're about to find out. And it just like sets them on fire, and there's like a warp that falls below, and they fall from the ceiling right above us. We're like, well, maybe that wasn't what we went to do.
Wrong spell. Used it bad.
bad. Well, as part of the trial and error and experimenting in a game of D&D is so much fun, and you're like, if I knew every little answer of everything and exactly how it's supposed to be used, well, that's a lot less fun to experiment with, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Just give us some, and that was the other thing that Shadow Dark does, is it gives you this really obscure description as well that entices creativity, which is like
I love
those
it.
old
Yes.
grimoires do. They instead of telling you exactly what it does, they're saying this is the gist of it. Now you go figure it out. Go out in the world and cast magics.
That's what we're all here for, to go out in the world and cast magics. So have we covered this one, John? Are we good?
I think we have solved all the magic quandaries of our universe, and we have gone forth with maybe not the future of magic, but in utopian magic world would be there. And that doesn't mean that Vince's hot takes on magic are the only way to appreciate magic, but they kind of are. So it's fine.
No, we want to hear what you have to say, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So if you're watching this on the YouTube, use that comment section below. We are going to check that out. Also, if you're listening to us and anywhere in the podcast locales, we might create something in the future for us to be able to all get together and discuss this stuff. We will let you know as soon as we get that figured out. But in the meantime, you can always just go over to the YouTube and we can have the conversation in the comment section there. And if you're watching on YouTube, do us a big favor and head over to your favorite place that you listen to podcasts and subscribe to us over there, even if you only watch on YouTube or vice versa, just because that helps us out, maybe get other nerds to find out that we exist. That would really, we'd really appreciate that to help this podcast grow.
That's right. Click things that make dings. It's really appreciated. There's obviously socials and stuff like that you can follow us on as well. All those are listed down below. So there's, Twitter and all Instagram and all that kind of stuff. So check all those out. If you are listening on a podcast catcher, don't forget to rate and review. That really does help other people find the show. And check out just here at the end. Don't forget Rain and Iron out now. Check it out. But I hope this was helpful. If you've got other thoughts for future show or topic ideas, stuff you want to see us discuss, hey, hit us up. We want to know. We want to know what you're thinking and what you want us to discuss
On the next, or future, or past, I don't know how time works, episode of Fireball the Gazebo. We'll see you next time. Oh shit, I have to hit the stop button.